Hello, this is Hamlet from the Guild Elitist Jerks and the server Mal'Ganis, narrating a gold challenge mode run of Temple of the Jade Serpent. This is a medium difficulty zone. This group did it as our 7th gold, and by that time it wound up giving us very little trouble compared to most others. So much like many of the other zones, we're going to start by gathering and killing as much trash as possible before the first boss. Here we gather all 4 of the corrupt living waters on the hallway before Mari and a few of the corrupt droplets that are around them. It winds up being a pretty high damage pull, both while the living waters are up and then after each of them die and release 3 more corrupt droplets. Normally I'd use tree form here, but it's actually still on cooldown from our previous reset. Remember that when the living waters die and release 3 droplets, those won't be on stun DR. Even if you stuns on the living waters, you might have a chance to use a few more abilities to reduce damage coming in. Also make sure your tank and melee DPS remember that the corrupt living water will leave behind the Sha residue when they die, and that deals quite a lot of damage in challenge mode. Nobody can stand in it. If we had really needed to shave time off of this run, we could probably have killed a lot of this during the beginning of the Mari encounter, where there's a lot of downtime where we wait for him to spawn his own corrupt living water ads. Here people finish off the last few as we're running in. Make sure that the group is roughly together as you run in, because otherwise it's very easy for people to get hit by that first Hydro Lance that always comes towards the entrance right as you start the encounter. The other reason is that unlike on heroic difficulty, in challenge mode you're not allowed to stand outside the outermost circle of water. He will kill you if you do. So the tank and melee DPS use the largest patch of land we have, which is that gap in the outermost water ring over on the far side. They fight there on one side or the other to drop the Sha residue and still leave themselves a safe place to stand. While in that area, it's also easy to move back and forth slightly to avoid Hydro Lance in either of the 2 adjacent pools. Meanwhile, range DPS stands in the spot you can see us in here, which doesn't get hit by Hydro Lance either towards the entrance or towards that pool on the right, and then we don't have to move very much for the entire first phase of the fight. Sometimes the corrupt living waters like this one are very uncooperative after they spawn when we try to get them grouped over to the melee. Basically, there's not much to do during this phase. All you can do is DPS the corrupt living water down as quickly as possible. I even use Heart of the Wild here, even though a lot of it's wasted, just to add a little DPS on the first 2 living water. It's not hard to imagine a high-end speed run, just pulling all the first 4 in the opening hallway and starting this boss fight immediately, and then killing them along with the ones that spawn during phase 1 of this fight. And a less extreme version of that is probably something you could keep in mind if you wind up needing to cut time out from this zone. Other than that, Mari is a pretty uneventful fight, especially here in the beginning. We do it first because after killing him, we're going to run back across to do the Strife and Peril fight, and then move on from that back into the middle courtyard to move on with the zone. If we did Strife and Peril first, then we'd have to run back up and around the spiral stairs in the library in order to come across here. We just killed the 3rd corrupt living water, and so you can see that while we kill the 3 corrupt droplets, Mari shoots that bolt that summons the 4th one. Melee DPS and the tank do have to be careful where they're standing throughout the duration of this. It's a bit easy to accidentally be in a Sha residue left over from killing a corrupt living water, or accidentally step into a pool and stand there for a little bit like we had someone do there, or accidentally move a bit too far to one side and get hit by Hydro Lance. Hydro Lance hits for a little over 200,000 in challenge mode, so it won't necessarily kill the tank, but it's the sort of thing you should be careful for. Like there, he winds up standing in and he dies. He probably shouldn't die if he's topped off perfectly, but as often in challenge modes, he's not always going to be topped off perfectly because you make a habit of finding times to heal somewhat more efficiently during periods that shouldn't be threatening. Alright, we finally killed the last one, and it's really hard to see where that starts. It's not going to kill you if you get hit by it near at full HP. It's actually not even that big a deal if you get hit by it in phase 2, but since the healer has to run around the circle constantly in phase 2, it's kind of nice if you don't take much damage. There's 0 unavoidable damage in phase 2. I can't really help DPS much here because I used Heart of the Wild back on the ads. I figure helping get 2 ads down was going to end the fight quicker than trying to use Heart of the Wild to DPS a little bit here while I have to run around constantly in the first place, so I can't really stop and cast Wrath. I just make sure to keep Fairy Fire up as always with this group comp. But beyond that, I pretty much just run around and keep people topped off with instants. As he gets low, it's even fine if a DPS just wants to take a hit from the water spout and keep DPSing. If it means you're not going to have to move again for the rest of the fight, that is. The moment he dies, we're going to head back out the way we came in and run across to start the trash in the library. I make use of a pretty common trick I use in challenge modes when we have a long run, which is to dash ahead of the group so I can get my drink started while everyone's catching up. It looks a bit more comical when it's combined with the speed boost from finishing the boss, though. I'm actually already here the moment we drop combat, and I immediately get in a restorative amber, and everyone else is only a few seconds behind with the speed buff. Coming up is the hardest trash pull here. It's going to be the first 2 pulls, this one and the one around the corner with the talking fish. We're going to use army on it and a whole bunch of cooldowns, including my tree form and whatever cooldowns the tank has. The talking fish actually hits quite hard. Either that or the tank just takes a lot of damage because of the number of mobs we have. The other thing to watch out for is that the lesser Sha have a short-range silence, so you want to make sure to stay away from the melee clump and try to not get near them as you're running in. The Death Knight DPS can also be kind of annoyed by that too. When the stun rotation ends, I top off the tank and use our Tranquility just to stabilize everything. The pank wasn't that bad with Army of the Dead. Without Army, it would have been like a lot of trash packs we've seen. Just have to make sure to execute your stun rotation correctly and use cooldowns, not anything unusually difficult. It can burn a lot of mana at any rate, so one thing to be careful for is that you may or may not have a drink until all the way after the boss. Coming up is the pack that we skip with invisibility potions. It's the one with the Songbird Queen. We choose it to skip because of the annoying sleep spell that she casts. We only have leeway to really skip one pull here, so it ends up being a short range invis, easy to execute, don't have any issues getting to the destination on time. Here we intentionally pulled a pack on the stairs with the Crybaby Hosen, the Golden Beetle, and the Nodding Tiger, because we're going to skip 3 mobs later in the zone using a different method, and we need to pull these 3 to make the mob count. If you aren't going to skip the 3 right before the final boss, then you can skip these 3. They don't really take any extra time to kill though, because you can aggro them and then jump down and kill the Corrupted Scroll to start the encounter, and then kill them during the RP before the Strife and Peril encounter actually begins. None of them really does anything interesting. The Golden Beetle occasionally reflects spells. Here I don't wind up getting a combat break before the boss because they're still at low HP when Strife and Peril come active. That made me kinda nervous since we hadn't done that many practice runs and I usually had full mana, but it actually wound up not being a problem at all. DPS switches back and forth just like in Heroic. Set a target number of stacks at which you switch targets, like 6 to 8 usually. Figure out whatever works that each mob is reset when you switch back to it after DPSing the other one. I make sure to keep Fairy Fire up on both of them. Heart of the Wild is still on cooldown, so I can't add DPS yet. Probably would have been another good reason to use it as early as possible in the first boss fight. And then I think I actually wind up not using it on this run because I was being very cautious healing the fight with low mana. It's pretty straightforward though. Whichever one the DPS is targeting will gradually pulse out damage onto the group and you just have to heal it off with whatever is your efficient group heal. I'm just using Wild Growth on cooldown. There's no reason the group can't stack together too to get efficient use out of whatever your ground-based heal is. I think in this case pretty much nothing happens for the duration of this encounter though. One thing I'll point out is that we haven't used Bloodlust yet. In this run we only wind up using it once, which is during the Flameheart encounter. You could fit in 2 if you really wanted. You could use 1 during Wisemari and then 1 during Sha of Doubt and speed both of them up a little bit. It might be slightly faster. We initially planned to use it on Flameheart because it's the most dangerous boss. That might not be necessary though, and using 2 might end the zone a little faster. The only issue is that the 1 during Wisemari might be largely wasted due to the way that encounter works. Something you might want to test is with your group's DPS, whether using a Bloodlust on Sha of Doubt might reduce the number of times he summons Figments of Doubt, which would speed up the encounter a lot if it pushes you over one of those thresholds, in which case you definitely want to use one there. Like I mentioned before, we wound up getting gold pretty early into our learning process at this zone, so a lot of those little refinements we hadn't worked out in detail yet. As the encounter's coming to an end, once again I'm getting ready to wait by the door and then use dash in order to sprint ahead to where we're going to start the next trash pack and drink back up to full. So there's the speed cat one more time while I get ahead and wait for the group. We do have to clear out this entire room in order to spawn Flameheart. The only types of mobs in this room are Lesser Sha, which you've already seen. You just want to stay at range as a healer so you don't get hit by their short range silence. And Minions of Doubt. They have 2 cast time spells, and interrupting either as much as possible will be very helpful. The first is Shadows of Doubt. It leaves a very high damaging pool on the floor that melee have to watch out for whenever you're fighting these. The second is Shattered Resolve. It can be cast on anyone. It's a dispellable debuff that reduces your damage or healing by 75%. There are 3 packs around the edges of the room, each with a Minion of Doubt and 2 patrolling around. Here we pulled the 2 patrols in, so we're fighting 3 at once. It may have been a bit easier to just fight 2 and then pull the second patrol in with the second pack, so we're only fighting 2 at a time. With 3, there are a lot of things that you're trying to interrupt. There's a danger when too many Shattered Resolves come out that you'll be on Dispel cooldown and Shattered Resolve will come on you and you won't be able to heal the tank for 8 seconds. So just make sure to keep the tank at high HP and make sure they're ready with a cooldown. I've mentioned in an earlier video there's a correct way to triage Dispels when there are more debuffs coming in than you can remove. You want to use your Dispel only on full duration debuffs. So if your Dispel is off cooldown and someone gets debuffed, you remove it. But then if someone else gets it while you're still on cooldown, you just ignore it. You let it tick out fully and save your Dispel for the next full duration one that you can remove, rather than repeatedly use your Dispel cooldown to remove 4 seconds worth of debuff. Once we're down to these packs with only one minion of doubt in them, it's pretty easy. We use our various AoE stuns just to keep everything smoother and make sure too many spell casts don't go off. The fewer the better, because the pools make DPS move and maybe lose a little DPS time, and Shattered Resolve reduces their DPS until it gets dispelled. Going into this pack, which is the final trash pack in the zone that we're going to fight, we have 41 of 45 enemies on the counter, so we're actually going to be 2 over after killing it, but there's no other place in the zone where we could have skipped exactly 2 mobs. As it's going down, we all get in a position for Flameheart, and I'm also going to make sure to drink as soon as we drop combat, because Flameheart is a boss that can take quite a lot of healing. The fight doesn't involve that much movement, so we all generally position ourselves for the skip that we're going to want to execute afterwards. Our hunter is over there on the far side, and the rest of us are here on this near side where the red marker is, for reasons you'll see in a moment. Flameheart herself is easy until 70%. There's a dot that has to be dispelled on the tank, and people do have to make sure to avoid the fire waves because it will one-shot them. She always spikes the tank and applies the dot, then does the kick that spreads the wave. Where the encounter gets interesting is at 70%. Now the dot is undispellable and includes a shield that absorbs the next 100,000 points of healing, and the kick knocks the tank back while creating the Jade waves. So in general, you want to keep the tank overhealed for the duration of this phase and have them ready to use cooldowns. Ideally, she'll only get 2 of those combos off before you transition her to the dragon phase at 30%. I'm also trying to be a bit conservative with important healing cooldowns like Tree here because I'm going to want to use them during Sha of Doubt. I did use Iron Bark on him for the dangerous part though. Once she's fully transformed into the Jade Serpent, the fight should be pretty straightforward. Everyone has to watch their feet for the Jade Fire. If you stand in that, you'll die very quickly. It puts a swirling green projected texture on the ground, and then a few seconds later the brightly colored fire actually appears. You can see it on me right there. It's not that hard to avoid, but just stay awake. As this fight's ending, we all get into position for what we're going to do next. My camera is at a slightly unfortunate angle, but watch the hunter at the top right of the screen. The moment this fight's down, he runs up on the stairs towards Sha of Doubt's room and waits for 3 minions of Doubt to spawn. You can't see them here, but as soon as they spawned, he aggroed them and ran back into Sha of Doubt's room while we waited outside of combat range. We sneak in, remaining outside of combat range, while he uses a combination of deterrence, disengage, and feign, and I think readiness to safely take them into the corner and then feign them off once we are into the Sha's room. So we've skipped them entirely and we start the boss fight. There's a little trick we use here where we pull him all the way up to this corner, and then when he summons Figments of Doubt, rather than becoming immune immediately, he's going to walk back to his normal location in the center of the other room before he goes immune, so you get a few extra seconds to DPS him. It's actually not the biggest deal the first 2 times, because one way or another you have to kill the minions and then you can DPS him again, so it doesn't add too much. But the 3rd time, it means that if you're cutting it close on being able to finish him off before he summons the 3rd set of Figments of Doubt, you'll be able to DPS him while he's walking back and potentially end the fight. And of course, if you do this, you have to make sure you can still finish off the Figments of Doubt in time, even after wasting a little bit of time after they spawned walking, because if they explode, they heal the boss. That shouldn't be too difficult though. So I used Tree Form for the first one. There is quite a lot of damage on the group while the Figments of Doubt are out. And then on the second one, I think I'm going to make sure to get back into the middle quickly and just use Tranquility while the Shaman uses Guidance. The damage during the Figment phases isn't that bad, but you may as well have these things planned in advance because they make it pretty straightforward. Remember to dispel Touch of Nothingness promptly. 1 tick of it isn't a big deal, but just don't forget about it. But the Figment of Doubt phases should be the only thing of concern in this fight as a healer, otherwise you just want to make sure the group is in good shape when they start spawning and you run back towards the middle. Random group members will have taken a little damage from Wither Will the whole time. Regardless of how you do your positioning here, what you want to make sure is that everyone not only clumps up when you start DPSing Figments of Doubt, but everyone checks that their own Figment is within the AoE circle. Otherwise, you might want to move a little extra to make sure to drag it in the right direction. An advantage of everyone coming from the same place is that the Figments will all tend to be clumped when you get there. There's the Tranquility I talked about. I actually interrupted here to dispel because I forgot how much damage Touch of Nothingness did, so I didn't know whether it was more important to dispel or let it finish. Either way, from here on in it's going to be clear sailing. You want to be able to finish the boss before he summons Figments a 3rd time. Bloodlusting at this fight if you need to, like I mentioned before, can help ensure that. And that's actually the real value of positioning him up here. That way if he starts summoning them while you're up here, then you'll be able to finish him off while he walks back towards the center. So there's our gold with 37 seconds to spare. Hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching.